Oh no, my necklace is terrible. 1 minute. 1 minute. This is the pre-show entertainment. This will be fixing my necklace. How's that? This thing, by the way, causes me no end of trouble in the records of the show because the microphone, the lav is right there. And you hear this, you hear that. Drives me nuts. But I'm not gonna take it off. That'd be too smart. All right. Well, Steve Murphy, Steve Young, Rodrigo is leaving us to go run a game. Soon it will be noon, and soon we will talk about things. Could be a small gank today. That's fine. No problem with that. I know the next stream is going to be at a different time. I am going to do I think I'm going to do the Monday after the next episode for reasons I'll talk about right now. Because look at that. It is noon on the 17th, I think, of April. So welcome back officially. Thanks for joining me here on live chat number 2 for me, myself, and Di, where I get to talk to you, my lovely patrons, to start with. And then after we have a nice conversation here, I upload it to YouTube, and the rest of the folks can watch it and see if they get something out of it. So that's good. Who have we got here? Cal Pearson. Put a little pouch around the dank. Oh, you're talking about the necklace. Yeah. Good idea. Oh, Jan Franken, hello. Ethan Robles, hello, hello, hello. So there's some of you here. So I'm not going to get into too many details just yet because I'm going to wait for some latecomers perhaps. But I will tell you this. So episode 117, 117 dropped on Monday, which was, I've lost track of time. It's the Monday of this past week. It was a big one, obviously. I will tell you this, episode 118 is not only in the can and being edited, but it is the season finale. Oh, yes. And I will tell you this as well, that many things happened that were very surprising. And some of you may not, well, just the way the season ends is, it's not what I expected. So that'll be something. That'll be something. You'll have to wait because obviously I'm not going to say anything about it. But yeah, yes. Ethan says, dude, I don't know if Arn's going to make it. I'm nervous. I'm nervous too, even though I know what happens. But I was nervous very much when I started because, of course, when I do these games in the show, I don't know what's going to happen at all. I have some, what can I tell you without like giving away the secret? I had an epiphany about the storyline that was developing several episodes back, and I started to slowly build that in. Well, that gets resolved. So I had some idea about what that was going to look like, but in terms of the details of the resolution, no idea. So yeah, I didn't know if Arn was going to survive or not. Yeah, cliffhanger at the start of the live stream, exactly. Anyway, 117 was a big one. That was pretty cool when the Husk showed up. Some of you had to have known that was the Husk. I set that up from way back. Do you remember it was like, I think episode 7 or something. It was after Arn left the island, and there was that weird intro sequence where something was raising the body of Thorbjorn and making him all weird and talking to him. That was a little hint. The Husk is coming. And then the whole chasing Arn through the north thing. I never actually said it was a Husk, but of course it was the Husk. Of course. Arn, no, it will not be Arn. I'm your father. There will not be that. I promise you, that does not happen. Yeah, Brad, the Husk was my guess, although not Thorbjorn. Yeah, well, that was, again, I seeded that at the beginning because Thorbjorn was being risen from the dead by the infernal power of the Husk to help the Husk track down Arn because he knew what it looked like. So anyway, that is that. It's weird, though, coming to the end because the show isn't fully edited yet, but the rough cut is done. So I know the general shape of the episode. How I do it, just so you know, is I shoot everything and then I transfer everything. and then I do a rough cut. And a rough cut is literally just what you call an assembly edit. It's you're taking the pieces of the various angles and you're putting them together to form a general version of the visuals. And then once that happens, I go back and I do a fine cut. And that's going through and really cinching up the edit points or realizing that I left stuff in that I didn't need or whatever. Or, there'll be some times where I'll roll the dice and for whatever reason, the sound gets screwed up. So I have to go back and I have to, put in a dice sound effect of the rolling from a different shot and stuff like that. And then once that is done, I go back and I do all of the titles and I go through like when the momentum changes or when the spirit goes down or whatever. So I do all those titles. That takes a while. And then I go back. It's a lot of back and forth. And I put in the sound effects and I put in the music. The music is the last thing to go. And then that's that. So by the time a given episode is done, I've watched it like 8 times. So I'm pretty sick of it by the time you guys see it. Brad, do you sometimes edit out specific little directions things go in, or are you just tightening up the flow? So I try very hard never to interfere with the narrative that evolves naturally from the game. But what'll happen is I tend to be a very repetitive GM. I've noticed. So I will say the same thing basically 3 different times, 3 different ways within the course of a minute. That is a habit of trying to reinforce an idea to my players so that they get it in their heads that this is the thing. But when you're watching a show, which is what this is, there's no need for that. You only need to say it once, or better yet, show it once, and then that's that. So I cut out a lot of my own repetition, but I try not to interrupt the narrative. I don't cheat. I don't say I'm going to go back and change this or whatever because I want it to be legitimate. I want it to be organic. So yeah, it's mostly just tightening up the flow and making something I'm very proud of the show is the editing. I'm very proud of how quickly it moves. Da, 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 da. There's not a lot of long lags in between moments. That's what I tried to anyway. Adobe or something fancy like Avid. Actually, Cal, what I use is Final Cut Pro 10, just because it is a one-off purchase for Mac as opposed to a subscription service. I can't stand subscription services. They drive me nuts. It's the way of the future, but I hate it. Whereas Final Cut Pro was a one-off purchase, like $200 or something like that. I was like, okay, done. So works great. Ethan, I know we get like 30, 40-minute episodes, but how long is an unedited filming session? What an excellent question. Depends, but normally an hour and a half to 2 hours. So what that means in film terms is if the final episode is half an hour, which is about average, and I shoot for an hour and a half, then you have a 3-to-1 shooting ratio, more or less. So 2/3 of the stuff that I shoot doesn't actually make it into the final. And again, that's mostly lag time. Like you sometimes it looks like, for example, when I go into a combat or something and boom, there's the table with the miniatures on it. Well, obviously I didn't just magic that up. I had to stop the camera, go out, get the stuff, place it, make sure it all works, then go back in, turn the cameras on again. And yeah, but when I cut it, of course it looks seamless. It looks like it's happening in real time, but obviously it's not. Steve Young, that's an actor habit. What is an actor habit? Being repetitive? That's probably true. Thank you, Jen. The editing is fantastic. Thank you very much. I do try. Oh, Brad S. Oh, yes, it moves, and your enthusiasm is as good as a cup of coffee. That's very lovely. Thank you very much. Jen, Jen, am I saying your name right? I assume I am, but obviously I can't hear you. I can only see it. So tell me if I am. Jen Franken. Um, the music and sound effects are really good. Really help the tension. Yeah, that's very important to me. I'm making a show. I'm making essentially a TV show. So because it's just me telling a story, I have miniatures that helps visually sometimes, but music and effects really put you in it. And also, a lot of people have told me that they listen to the show as a podcast, as an audio thing. And I keep meaning to release them as just audio podcast. I just haven't had time to do it. It's on the agenda though for later this year. Because a lot of people like my friend Gab, who actually designed the logo for the show, he listens to it in the car on the way to work, or he did in the old days, when you still had to get in the car and go to work for a lot of people. And for him, yeah, he listened to it like a radio play. So that it's kind of cool that it's strong enough to be able to survive in that format as well. Um, Oh, hilarious. My husband asks when we were getting the Snyder cut of the season. This is the Snyder cut of the season, what you're getting. Um, there's not a lot of interesting things that get cut out, honestly. There's the occasional blooper, but most of the time, the funny bloopers I keep in, like when I look directly at the camera and like break the fourth wall, so to speak. Um, but yeah, no, there's not a lot of interesting stuff. If you were to watch an actual live filming of me running a session, I think you'd be bored to tears because there's a lot of technical stuff that gets in the way. I have to restart the cameras every 27 minutes. I have to check things. I got to recheck lights, and it's just bleh. So believe me, this is a much better choice. Well, there goes my thought that you're a conjuration wizard. I know, Brad. I know. Clearly, I have magical powers. Um. Okay. Say Sean is closer for John. John Franken. Are you from Ireland? I wonder if you are. Sounds like you might be. I don't know. Um. Corey, did you miss the Mythic random events this season? I like how Mythic can bring back an NPC unexpectedly. Personally, Corey, I think you made a comment about that in the on the show notes or the comment section at one point. I do miss it very much. I like Ironsworn fine. Ironsworn took me a while to wrap my head around for reasons I think I've discussed on either the last stream or in the Drinking with DMs episodes that I've been doing. Which, by the way, if you guys want to check those out, make sure you're a D10 level subscribers because I try and put those out with some degree of regularity, and they're pretty cool. We just sit and talk for an hour or whatever, and talk about all kinds of stuff in our RPGs. But yes, I did miss the Mythic events thing. I really like Mythic. I really like its structure. It speaks to me. I understand it. Um, and then specifically with the NPCs like coming back because when a random event happens, you look at, well, what could it be? Does it affect a PC? Does it affect an NPC? Does it close a thread? Does it advance a thread? I love that stuff because somebody pointed out in the comments that what Mythic is trying to do is basically emulate the what seems like the randomness a GM might throw at you, whereas a system like Ironsworn is about creating a more crafted narrative that leads towards something. Uh, I can understand that sentiment. I don't know if I totally agree with it, but certainly Mythic for me feels more chaotic, feels more random, which I like because I don't like I've said this before, I don't like telling a story, believe it or not, as a GM. It's a little different here because I'm a GM and a player and I'm doing a show, so obviously the story is important, but I don't go into it thinking, okay, there's going to be this story and this is going to happen, this is going to happen because that's pre-planning and I don't want to do pre-planning. And I'm falling behind here. Where are we? Oh, I'm from Jan. I'm from Holland, but I live in Denmark now. Okay, well, in that case, forgive my radically awful, vaguely Scandinavian accent that I've been doing for Arn. I think I've talked about that before about how it's sort of like this weird Skyrim bastardization accent, but it's not an Earth accent, clearly. Um, Brad, I'm still trying to work with Ironsworn. I have bad luck with dice, lots of misses. Yeah, that happens a lot to me too. I've been lucky the past couple of sessions. Uh, and also Arn, as it turns out, is pretty capable, especially that spear, man. When he got the spear and I bought the advantage that allows him to do Savage Strike, he has to endure stress every time, but oh boy, +2 harm every strike. Like that's huge, 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 huge. Oh, thank you, Steve. Steve Young says there. Good shows, funny and informative. The Drinking with DMs, I presume. Clyde says, "Are you moving back to Mythic in season 3?" I don't know. Um, I want to say probably, but I don't know. I have. There's a couple of contenders for season 3 in terms of the system. It won't be Ironsworn. It won't be Savage Worlds. It's going to be something different. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but I am leaning very heavily towards one particular system, which I think is great and could work very well. In terms of the randomizer, like the Oracle, I'm really tempted to go back to Mythic just because I do miss it and I love it. There are other oracles out there that I'm gonna take a look at because if something strikes my fancy, I might say, "Oh, it might be cool to try a totally new oracle as well for season 3." But we'll see what happens with that. You mentioned collecting a lot of gaming systems. Do you support any Kickstarters? I do. Right now, I'm supporting the second edition of the One Ring because I just thought those developers were masterful in how they handled the first one. So I'm really excited to see how they do with the second edition. And also, they've one of the stretch goals was to bring Sean in to do uh, a solo version of the One Ring. So it's possible that one of these days I might do that because I'm a massive Middle Earth fan, massive Tolkien fan. I read the Hobbit was the very first book I ever read. I read the Lord of the Rings when I was 8. So It's very, very dear to my heart. So we'll see about that. Um, Steve Young says, I looked at a huge number of solar systems doing my research. Yeah, there's more out there now. A lot of people talk to me about Scarlet Heroes, which I think is Kevin Crawford's game. I love him as a designer. I think he's fantastic. I really want to use some of his stuff in projects coming up. I do have a couple of really cool projects coming up as well, besides just the show, season 3. And I want to utilize some of his stuff, and I'll tell you more about that as we get closer. But it's going to be a little reward for some of the higher level patrons to be part of that one. So yeah, I'm tempted to get the One Ring RPG. You should be. It's great. A lot of it's very different in terms of its mechanics. Very different than anything I'd seen before. Especially the combats. It took me a while to kind of figure it out, but once I did, I was like, oh yeah, no, I totally get it. I will say this about the One Ring: I have never seen a game system that so faithfully emulates its source material as the One Ring does. It feels like Middle Earth right away, and I'm like, yeah, that's great. Um, the dice rolling system is fairly straightforward. You've got a dice pool, and then you've got the of d6s basically, and you've got that d12 in there as well. But it's things like the combat system where you go into stances. Are you forward? Are you defensive? Are you back? And the stance determines how hard it is to hit you and how hard it is for you to hit somebody else. So it's like the more aggressive you're being, the more likely you're going to cause damage, but the more likely you're going to take damage as well. It makes good sense. I really dig it. But what I loved about the One Ring was actually the social combat system. And I think I may have talked about this in the last Drinking with DMs. I can't remember. The idea that you've got all of these social skills and uh, social encounters were the most tense things for me and my players when we ran that campaign because so much was at stake and they had to still use their characters use their character skills. It was great. Uh, Jean, is it possible to buy with some kickback to you? The One Ring? Uh, I don't know. I suppose I could link it on RP, or I could link the drive-through RPG link because I presume you can buy it to them on my show notes. So maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll do that with this chat, which would be great. Thank you very much for doing that. Ethan, are you still planning on doing the Sages Library? Absolutely, absolutely. The only issue is I'm in the midst of relocating. And so everything's chaos right now as we put everything in boxes and go to look at new places and new setups and new studio situations for me. So I've shot a bunch of stuff already that I'm hoping to be able to edit as I'm in the transition and release to you. We'll see how well that goes. But yes, definitely I am going to do it. Hopefully sooner rather than later, but my life is in a complete state of flux right now. So we'll see what happens. Corey, will season 3 be in the same world as Simon and Arn? Absolutely. 100%. Season 3 will continue in that world. I won't tell you any more than that, but yes, it will be in the same world as that. I've treated my RPG rules, social systems just like combat. Yeah, you can. There's a lot of games that do that. I'm starting to play in a Burning Wheel game that Jared, my friend Jared, who was a guest on Drinking with the M's, is doing, and that's sort of like the ultimate game of gaming out social combat. Maybe it takes a little too far, in my opinion, but we'll see. Okay. Thank you, Ethan. Good luck with the move. Yes, it's a big one. I'll tell you all about that once it's all squared away and done. But for now, just know that things are totally in flux now. So much so that I had to shoot the last 2 episodes back to back because I knew we were going. So I was like, I got to finish this because I can't leave the audience hanging waiting for the season finale for who knows how long. So I had to shoot them back to back. But got them in the can, and they're all done. So that's good, or they will be all done very soon. Dwayne, have you been a guest in any live stream table games lately? I know it's a divergence from the focus of the channel, but I'd still enjoy seeing you improvise live in that setting. I haven't, but I am doing a special thing. Again, as soon as I get settled, I've got a new, I've been calling it a mini series idea, which will be kind of part live stream game and part not. Ooh, we'll see. It's an experiment, but I think it's going to work. I think you guys are going to dig it. I hope you do. But no, I actually, the games that I have played as a player online with friends from back home, we don't record those or anything. Those are just for our own pleasure and enjoyment. I guess I could, but no. You know what? I'm not gonna. Those are be just for me. Steve, about the pictures behind you. Did you do acting them? Yes, that is F is for Family. That's a series on Netflix I did with Bill Burr and Laura Dern and Sam Rockwell and many, many others. I'm all over the show. I play like 5, 6, 7, 8 characters in it. It's on Netflix, so check it out. It's one of my favorite shows I've ever done. And then that was Guardians of the Galaxy. I was Rocket Raccoon on Guardians, and that was the Avengers Assemble season, which focused on Black Panther, and I was Claw in that. South African Claw for that guy. And I also wrote a bunch of episodes for both those shows, which was really, really cool. Yeah. Jean, we see some of your terrain and minis behind you in the show. How much time do you spend on collecting, building, painting? Um, currently not a lot. I went through a big. I'm just trying to see if anybody's. Oh, here we go. Oh, here we go. Andrew Nicholson on Patreon has a question. I'll get right to you, Andrew. 1 second. Where were we? Oh yeah, the minis and the train. I went through a big. Like terrain blitz for myself right before I shot season 1 of Me, Myself, and Die, because I found Black Magic Craft and I went, oh, I can do that. That's awesome. So I spent months buying all the stuff and the Proxon wire cutter, foam cutter table, and all the stuff. So I built a bunch of stuff and I went, what am I going to do with this? And then I thought, oh, I'll put it in the show. Why not? But the minis, honestly, the ones that you see behind me in the show are just a lifetime's worth of collections. They're just stuff I've accumulated. So I'm a terrible painter. I'm really awful at it. I don't have the patience for it. I don't have the steady hand for it. But I'm glad you like it. I'm going to try and do more fancy stuff as we go. Season 3 is going to present some challenges for me because the setting is going to be quite different. Still in the same world, but the setting is going to be quite different, I think. So I'm going to have to come up with some new stuff. But where are we? Cal, for sure keep some games as private fuel, free-minded spirit, exactly. And yes, Steve, I am a writer as well as a voice actor. I've done a bunch of stuff, mostly for Marvel, at least when there was still a Marvel TV animation division. That is now defunct. That went off to the Marvel Studios, so that whole division got got put away, which was sad because it was really good times for us when we were all working together on that stuff. But yeah, so I do that. So Andrew Nicholson, as a Harn fan, did you see the Kickstarter for the Harn reprints? Yes, I did. What they're doing with the new Harn stuff? Well, I shouldn't say new Harn stuff. Oh, are we still there? What happened? My camera just did a weird thing. That was weird. That was weird, camera. You guys still with me? Yes, you're still with me? Yes. Say something. Did we? Am I still here? Okay. Good. Okay. I haven't used this camera for live stream at all. This, by the way, this camera that you're seeing me on right now, this is my dolly camera that was used in the show. Not that that means anything. Anyway, so as a Harn fan, did you see the Kickstarter for the Harn reprint? So what they're doing with the Harn stuff is they're taking all of the old setting material and they're putting them in hardback books, as far as I can tell. They look great. I would love to help them, except that I own literally every word that's ever been printed for Harn in some form. I already have shelves upon shelves of all the old Harn stuff, and the material itself hasn't really changed. The presentation of it has, and it's great. But I'm like, do I really need to triple up on my Harn material just to have a hardback? So I'm not gonna back that one for now. I might change my mind. Who knows? I wind up buying things all the time that I don't need. Okay, Steve. Yes, it wouldn't be a Trevor show without a hiccup. That is absolutely true. Yes, Brad, the camera mounted to the train. That's right. Choo choo. For those of you who don't know what that means, there was some suggestions that the way that I had the camera going back and forth was on a little train setup. And we thought that was funny, but no, it's not. It was a dolly track. Oh, that's another thing. I shot a little behind the scenes thing for you guys before I tore down the set. So I'll be putting that up once I edit it, whenever that happens. Again, in the middle of the move here, so it's tough to do. But I did. So many people were asking about what it looked like, and I thought, I will never shoot in this building again. I will never shoot in this studio again. So I should show them what it looked like. I thought that'd be kind of cool. So I did. It's not fancy. It's just basically me with a camera going, "This is what this looks like." But yeah, I'll put that together and you'll see behind the curtain. I think I'll just keep that for you, for you patrons. I don't think I'll make that publicly accessible, but we shall see. Um, Ethan, was that you? You thought the dolly was at a train set in the background? I was gonna do that. I was gonna make a behind the scenes video, but a total mockery of it, like a send up where there was an actual train set, but I didn't have time. A between seasons equipment tour would be a good behind the scenes view. Yeah, well, that's kind of what you're gonna get, Cal, with this stuff that I shot. Have you played any weird RPGs? Aren't all RPGs kind of weird? Um, Weird RPGs. I guess I don't know how to answer that. I played a lot of different genres, a lot of different systems. I'm a bit of a system junkie, so I love to um try new things. Like I don't have a if I had to prefer, if I'd say I prefer a system, it would be like a personal based system, like a Rollmaster or Harn Master or RuneQuest or something like that. Something about the aesthetic of rolling D100s I like. That said, I like dice pools as well, as long as they're not crazy, as long as they're not like, first edition Star Wars West End Games dice pools where you're rolling 30 dice to get something done. Um, but even that had its charms back in the day. So I like different genres too. Like I like to go into like post-apocalyptic settings, or I like to go into sci-fi, or dark fantasy. Obviously, is sort of a go-to for me. Although not so much. I don't know. Let me ask you guys: would you consider the work I did on seasons 1 and 2 dark fantasy? Because I wouldn't. I mean, there was dark elements, but I wouldn't actually call it dark fantasy. But what do you guys think? Let's go to the phones. What's your most memorable RPG experience? Oh boy, that's tough. That we're talking 40 years of experiences. 40 years. Uh that is really tough. I could probably do a whole show just on that, of game stories, which you're never supposed to tell because they're interminably boring. But my favorite RPG experience, I'm just gonna pick one out of the hundreds of millions. uh, this was a lifetime ago. I probably would have been, oh, I don't know, late 20s, mostly at the most. And we all went out to our buddy Chris's cabin for the weekend. It was this great cabin in the mountains. And I was running Palladium, first edition Palladium Fantasy at the time, but it was a knockoff world called Talagad. It was like Viking based kind of world. And we were in the middle of a big campaign, and I ran like the first day, like a 12-hour session. And then we slept, woke up, and continued playing for like another 8 hours. It was glorious, but hard to do that these days because of, scheduling and such. But Dwayne, what is your favorite die? D6, D10, or D20? Out of those three, D10, because it's one half of the D100s. So I wouldn't characterize those as dark, dramatic and gritty, but not dark. Uh, you need the dark and the light to have a good story. Yeah, that's true. Ethan says, I feel like season 2 was a little darker than season 1. The Ironlands felt more cold and isolated, but another season felt grimdark. That's good. I was going for cold and isolated. I was really trying to make the Ironlands feel very different than the Southern lands, which at this point don't have a name. They will have one eventually, I'm sure. Um, but that's good. Yeah, Ironsworn. I was definitely going for a little darker and more gritty, and that's not hard to do with the setting and with the system and all that. But yeah, certainly not grimdark. I wasn't trying to do Warhammer. Not to say I won't do Warhammer in the future. I might, but because I do love my preferred setting is actually super grimdark. Although that term has been overused so much. It really started with Warhammer 40,000, grimdark. that's a very specific kind of grimdark to me. It is fun. For Warhammer 40K is great if you get the right people. Um, but I like dark fantasy, like Warhammer Fantasy, for example, is I've always said somebody said this, and I don't know who to attribute the quote to, but somebody said Warhammer Fantasy is like you sit down to play a game, you think you're playing D&D, but you quickly discover you're playing Call of Cthulhu, and I was like, that's a perfect summation of that game. Yes, low magic, darker setting for Ironsworn for sure. That's another reason why I didn't want to get into the details of magic and stuff so much with Ironsworn. I think the most high magic thing that happened was in terms of flashiness was maybe the druid back in episode 13, 14, whatever that was. The Australian guy, the druid, whose name I totally forget now. Because he was, he had like the Baba Yaga hut kind of, the cottage on stilt. That's pretty high magic, I guess. But other than that, I didn't want to have like a bunch of people running around hucking fireballs at each other and stuff. We did see some of that in the first season, and I thought that's okay because it's a different world. There's different rules of physics and reality in there because my conception of the Ironlands was that it was literally cut off from the rest of the world by these barriers. I think I described that at some point. Was it in episode 1? I don't remember, but I described how in my conception of the Ironlands, it was like this place where all of the criminals of the world were shipped to and forgotten about, and gradually the Ironlands themselves began to drift away, metaphorically, also physically, and hence the barriers sort of appeared. It's never described what the barriers are, who put them up, anything like that, and I did that on purpose because I wanted to keep it very vague. Just that Arn knew how to get through, but very few people did, and that was enough to, you know, tell the story. Ticker plays. Andrew here again. Have you considered running a game with fans over the net as a fundraiser for the channel? Yes and no. Yes and no. How's that for an answer? Uh, yes, I have a very specific thing I want to try, which will involve you guys, my patrons, for something. It won't be part of well, actually, I shouldn't say that. It might actually be part of season 3. I'm still working out the details. But in terms of actually running a game like a proper, hey, let's sit down and play D&D, and I'll run 5 people through it. Maybe I might be convinced. Um, we'll see. We'll see. Bug me if you guys want that. Bug me. Let me know. Um, I guess the grimdark is also that you don't expect to survive necessarily. For me, that is absolutely true. I don't like it playing a game where my character has plot armor. That's boring to me because I am I want to earn my victories. I want to earn my successes. And if the players are special because they're the protagonists, they're the main characters, all I do is say, "See Ned Stark. He was a protagonist too." So, uh um I like games that are realistic, Steve says, and provide a challenge for players' characters no matter what the setting. Yeah, me too. Although realistic is a funny word because realistic has been one of those words that's been debated in gaming circles. What does that mean? Well, it's not realistic that someone's going to cast a fireball. But that's not what they mean when they say realistic. I suspect that's not what you mean. It's definitely not what I mean when I say realistic. What realistic means a sense of verisimilitude. It means a sense of consistency within the setting. So if it's consistent that wizards blast big fireballs all the time, okay. So that then becomes realistic that they would do that in the setting. But if they don't, and all of a sudden a wizard does, that's now no longer realistic for that. You know what I mean? It's all based on the setting. It's all context um, dependent. Let's see. Jean says, "How much money do I need to throw at you to get that done?" The number. You can't count that high. um, let's see here. Yeah, Brad, I think it'd be interesting to have you as a GM, but finding the time to play. Yeah, it's tough, especially because, I think a lot of you guys are from all over the world. So that presents challenges, but it totally can be done. It can totally be done. Um, where are we? Yeah. Ethan, it would be great to be a part of something like the faction turn and Stars Without Numbers at patrons. Well, what a coincidence that you say that. Hmm. I put an email out to Kevin Crawford to ask him about something that has very much to do with something like that. But keep watching the skies. The secret will reveal itself in time. Yes, verisimilitude. What a wonderful part of the vernacular of the Anglo-Saxon tongue. I am guessing that a lot of you are GMs and like you Tigger plays scenario writers. Actually, let me ask you that. I can't do a live poll because I don't know how, but sort of digital hands up. How many of you are GMs? I suspect it's going to be the majority of you. I'm just curious to see. Curious to see. Oh, friend of mine said that he really liked the camera angle from the first live chat because it was my booth, but the camera was terrible. Just a little low res thing. I didn't like it. This is the fancy camera. Brad, you're not raising your hand, so you are just a player then. Yeah, I should do a poll on the channel because I'd be really curious to see how many of the viewers are mostly GMs. And you know, how many is that the kind of person that would be attracted to the solo role playing thing? Or would it be mostly players? I would guess it would be mostly GMs because what is it, the forever GM thing? Is that the term where someone is always GMing and they just want to play? I bet you the solo thing was made just for them, with them in mind. Interesting. Chase depends on the game as to whether I'm our group's GM or not. That must be nice. My old group. I think I talked about this before. See how repetitive I am? I warned you. My old group basically had 2 GMs out of about 8 of us. It was me and my friend Ross, who was my last guest on Drinking with DMs. Our other friend Trevor Legault, he occasionally did stuff, but it was mostly me and Ross, and that's fine. Like I love it, but it sure is nice to play again too. You know. Yeah, it's just a player, says Brad. My 2-year group had everyone take a turn GMing. That was fun, but enough. That I tried to do that once a lifetime ago, where we were like, oh, we'll all just GM a session, but GMing is a particular skill, and not everybody has it. I think everybody can learn it, but not everybody has it, and out of the gate, and that could be tough sometimes. What's the old phrase the old grognards use that no gaming is better than bad gaming? I don't know if I necessarily agree with the sentiment, but it's tough with an inexperienced GM. That said, we were all inexperienced GMs at some point, and I'm really thankful that I had players that suffered through my horrible mistakes. So go easy on those. Go easy on those people that want a GM. They want to start because we need more GMs so the guys like us can play more. If nothing else. Oh, where are we? Yeah, Jean is definitely the forever DM. Yeah, me too. But I'm okay with it. I prefer GMing to playing. However, with any award-winning writers also in my local group, it's not always possible. Yeah, I would imagine. Chase says, that sounds familiar. There are 7 of us, and it's usually me or my friend John that GMs, unless it's Call of Cthulhu. I've been the Soul Keeper for nearly 30 years. Well, you obviously have a handle on the setting and the rules by now, so everybody just trusts you to know what you're doing, which is kind of great. Ethan says, I actually feel like trying some solo play with Ironsworn is helping me to be a better GM, more flexible, willing to improv, etc. I think that using any Oracle-based system is going to do that. If you haven't tried Mythic, I strongly recommend it, and not just to buy it from the drive-through RPG link below, but just to try it because it opens your mind. It opened my mind a lot when I first found it years and years ago. When it first came out, I think it came out in like 2004 or something. And I stumbled across it, and I was like, oh. But again, I wasn't looking at it as a solo game tool. I was looking at it as a tool for not only adventure creation, where I didn't know what was going to happen, but being able to respond in real time to what my players did when I didn't know what was going to happen. Because I love the idea in concept of being able to sit down at a game table and not have the first clue as to what was going to happen and just let the players take the reins. And it changes your game when you do that. It's like you see possibilities you never saw. If you come from a place where you're predominantly running modules or something like that, um, that it blows your mind, man, when you try that stuff. So I heartily recommend it for everybody, just to check it out. And even if you don't want to do the solo thing, for whatever reason, it's a great tool for jams. It just opens the imagination. It's a great exercise in improv, and it's all good. Friends don't let friends not GM. It's a community of progress and story. The oldest human entertainment. I agree. Actually, I agree. Um, Starforged. Interested in seeing Starforged. So that is the Iron Sworn sci-fi version. I'm interested in seeing it too. A lot of people ask me if I'm going to do a sci-fi season. I might. It would obviously have nothing to do with, Arn and Simon and that gang. But yeah, the real reason why I'm sort of hesitant to do a sci-fi thing is because I really like showing visual things on my table with minis and maps and stuff and terrain, and I don't have any of that for sci-fi. The only stuff I have is a bunch of old Warhammer 40K stuff, and that is very specific. When you look at that, you're like, oh yeah, that's Warhammer, as opposed to Starforged, or if you were doing a solo game of Traveler or something, that is a very particular aesthetic to it, and those minis would be a little off-putting for that. So I don't know if you all send me a bunch of sci-fi minis and terrain, maybe I'll do it. But in the meantime, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Okay. I was surprised about 1,000-Year-Old Vampire. Solo never appealed to me, but that was really mind-blowing. Yeah, I talked about this on some other show, where 1,000-Year Vampire is a work of art. It is just a beautiful thing. That said, I don't consider it an RPG. I don't consider it a role-playing game. I consider it a writing exercise. Um, don't hate me, internet. I bought it and I supported it because I thought it was fantastic. But I would hesitate to call it a game, because you're journaling the life of a character. There is a randomizer, you roll a die and see what takes you, but it's not, to me, it's not the same thing as a solo RPG. A really wild experience though, and I'm glad I bought it. And again, it's just this beautiful product. A beautiful, beautiful product. Even if you never play it, just to flip through it and to have it on your shelf, it's great. Ethan, I want to try Mythic. I'm an overprep GM and I'm trying to break that habit. That is exactly why I loved Mythic, because I was an overprep GM, and it was Mythic that allowed me to break that habit. You have to trust it. You have to internalize the mechanisms of it. It's not hard to do. But once that happens, yeah, it breaks you of your need to overprep. Try it. Check it out. Seriously. Clyde says, when I discovered Mythic, it was like a light from heaven shined onto the drive-through RPG page. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Letting players improv and oracles into your game is a real paradigm changer for sure. Yes, well, Brad, you'll just have to pick up some sci-fi minis and train. Right. I'll just have to go and grab some out of the world somewhere. I wrote my Star Trek adventure module today, says Steve Young, which is weird. I've not used one for 30 years. It was a fun experience writing out my ideas before I ran a game. I played one game of Oh no, I lie. It wasn't Star Trek. It was Starfleet Battles way, way, way back in the mid 80s. Great game. Very, very involved, where you had to like adjust your shields for this and shunt power to the life support, and today it would probably be incomprehensible to me, but boy, when I was 10, oh, it was the best. Probably played it completely wrong, but Adam, hey, I made it for the last little bit. Yay! Adam's arrived. Welcome to it. I would suggest you haven't missed anything. But I shouldn't say that. There's been some really good questions and some pathetic attempts at answering them in a cogent way. on my part. Corey, my current favorite fantasy RPGs for solo are Morkborg and Forbidden Lands. Have you checked them out? Yes, I have checked out Morkborg. What a product that is. Wow. Again, I love to look at it. Forbidden Lands, I ran a campaign with, I ran a West Marches style game with friends from Vancouver and Edmonton at the same time, which was awesome. Really enjoy that system a lot. Not without its flaws. You know, every system has its flaws. There's no such thing as a perfect system, but I really do enjoy that one. Hi. Yeah, we need to take up a collection for a nice sci-fi mini addition to the channel's resources. Well, I'm not going to say no. I'm not going to say no to that. Although I have nowhere to put them. I am out of space. That's going to have to be it's going to have to be a consideration for the new location, is making sure there's enough room for all of this stuff that I've accumulated for the game over these years. Use Tabletop on Steam as virtual 3D figures and props. I'm technologically illiterate. I've tried to figure out virtual tabletop, and it just hurts my brain. You can actually see the brains leaking slowly out of my ear as I'm looking at Steam, going, does this work? I don't know. And I keep flipping the table by accident, which is a thing you could do. So probably not going to use that one. Outer space for outer space. Oh, very clever. Very, very clever. Outer space for outer space. Yes. All right. Adam, do you make plans or come up with possible future events for what things might happen to Arn? Or do you interpret everything from scratch to roll the oracle? So I kind of talked about this in the beginning, which you would have known if you'd been here. I'm just kidding. I try and keep everything in the moment and as random as possible. Just to recap what my answer before was, I like to keep things organic and natural and improvised and inspired by the dice rolls and the oracles. But that said, by the time you get to the end of a season, there are things in play that I know are going to come back and affect, in this case, Arn. That's why the Husk showed up. I knew from the moment that Arn escaped the island with the Husk's ship and the people, his prisoners, basically, I knew this Husk is not just going to sit around and go, oh, well, doo-doo-doo-doo. I knew that it was going to go after him. What form that took, no idea. And I had no idea when that was going to happen either. I really believed in the episode where Arn was a few episodes ago, where he was gunning north to get to the hills, to the mountains. I really believe the Husk was going to catch up with him there. You know, when I was doing the threat meter with the flaming numbers that would come on the screen and stuff, I really believed that the Husk was going to catch up with him at some point, but he didn't. And as luck would have it, and as randomness would have it, that avalanche sealed off the only access way to the north, and that's why the Husk didn't show up until just recently. So again, the answer is kind of yes and no, but certainly at the beginning, I have no idea. I went back and I watched the first few episodes of season 2 the other day, and I realized, wow, it was wild back then, because I had no idea what was going on. I had no idea what the quest was. I had no idea what his vow was. I had no idea where he was from. All of that stuff just got invented in the moment. At the end of season 1, where Arn turns to Simon and Edbert and says, yes, well, I must go home. I have sworn a vow and stuff like that. And ho, yes, vow to the Ironlands, a little wink and a nod to the audience. But that's all I knew. Okay, he's sworn a vow. He's got to go home to fulfill it. That's it. And that's all I knew until we rolled the dice and there it emerged. Oh, he's got to kill a dragon. Okay, he's in trouble. So, yeah. All right, where are we here? Walk-in closet, but for minis and terrain and all your books and systems. I'd love to have that. My office in the house here is wall-to-wall bookshelves with nothing but game stuff on it. Literally. Not the minis. The minis are out here in the studio. Well, they were till they were packed away. And the train and everything was out here. But the books, wall to wall, an entire room. Gonna have to buy a bigger room. Could use paper minis. Yeah, I could use paper minis. There's something about paper minis. There's something about paper minis that doesn't do it for me. I don't know. Maybe it's just the two-dimensionality of them. I don't know. But I could. Yeah, I totally could. Yes, Cal, exactly. Trevor hasn't even moved and we're filling up the new crib with stuff. Exactly. appreciate the sentiment, but give me some breathing room here, guys. Hey. Oh, my goodness. My goodness. Steve Murphy, I did wonder when the husk was going to reappear. His "Where's my spear" scene was epic. There was a comment that somebody made, maybe it was one of you, on that episode where someone said, dude, what's with that beginning? Ha ha ha. And I was like, have you watched the show? Do you know? Do you not know what that was? Because was I being obtuse? I don't think I was being obtuse. I thought it was pretty obvious what was going on, but you never know. Everyone's a critic. All right. All right. The husk appearance in battle was awesome. Good. I'm glad it worked. I was about to say something about the next episode, but I won't, obviously, because I'm going to wait. Anyway, guys, it is that time where I must go. But thanks for coming on board and making this work. Had some small technical difficulties at the beginning. Not as bad as last time. Hopefully next time will be even fewer. So just so you all know, the next live chat will in fact be on the Monday. Oh, what is the date of when the next episode will drop when it's finally done? Monday the 26th. So the episode drops at 1 o'clock Pacific. I will be doing a live stream right after the episode. So we'll start at 2 o'clock Pacific on Monday the 26th. I know that's getting late for some of you Europeans, and I know it's kind of weird for some of you here in North America. But if no one shows up, I'll know that it was a terrible time. But it would be really cool, I think, to talk in real time about the events of the season finale, which is what that is coming up. So yeah, I will schedule the next live chat for 2 o'clock p.m. Pacific time on Monday the 26th. No, Jean, I will not disappear for 7 months like I did last time. I'm going to, as I said, I have shot some stuff already for the Sage's Library stuff and the other projects that I've got going. It's just, I'm literally in transition phase right now. I'm going to try and have something up, at the very least, these live chats, at the very least, because that's fairly simple to do. I can put up a camera and talk and answer your questions and get a dialogue going. But I will very much try and get, in terms of season 3, I don't know when that's going to happen. I hope soon, but it's all going to be contingent on the space I find. I have many, many options, so I have to narrow that down and find just the right place and then set that up. It shouldn't be too long, though. I don't think it's going to be the same gap that there was between season 1 and season 2. I didn't really think there was that much interest in the season 2, frankly, so I wasn't sure whether I should do it. But then, obviously more subscribers came and people said, "Oh yeah, do it." So there we did it. Anyway, that's that. Thank you all for joining me, and yeah, thank you for all your questions and observations and stuff. This is good. I really feel like you guys. I feel like we're on the same page with a lot of stuff, which is great. And where we're not on the same page, it's interesting for me to get a different perspective. I enjoy what they used to call a fruitful discussion, where you could actually share your ideas and listen to the person, and then give your ideas and get a dialogue going where both parties learn something. Oh, and I just lost my camera again. My camera's telling me, no, don't discuss things with people. Tell them how it is and then walk away. Well, screw you, camera. Screw you. Okay, that's it. Thank you all for joining me, and I'll see you next time on the next live chat. But as I said, do not forget to tune in for the season finale on April 26th at 1 p.m. Pacific, and then 2 o'clock Pacific, we'll do the live post-show chat. There it is. Thanks so much, and we will see you all next time.